The lights of Madison Square Garden burn like fiery halos, casting long shadows across the ring where legends have walked, bled, and built their names into immortality. Tonight, those lights shine on two men whose legacies are carved into boxing history. But their stories could not be more different. On one side stands the charismatic, dazzling, almost mythical Roy Jones Jr., a man blessed with reflexes so sharp they seemed superhuman, with speed so fast it blurred the eye, with a showmanship that at his peak felt untouchable. Former middleweight champion, former light heavyweight champion, former heavyweight champion of the world. A man who defied physics, defied weight classes, and defied expectations. But now, at 39 years old, the lightning is dimmer, his reflexes no longer immortal. On the other side, Joe Calzaghe, the undefeated Welsh warrior, a master craftsman of chaos, a man who didn't win fights with one punch, but with 1,000. Relentless volume, unmatched stamina, fearless heart, and a will to outwork anyone who dared stand in front of him. Tonight, one man fights to protect his perfect legacy. The other fights to preserve his legend. The crowd roars, the bell rings, and history steps into the ring. Round one begins like a memory. Roy Jones, sharp, calm, waiting. He sees timing, he sees distance, he sees opportunity. As Calzaghe begins to feel out the space, Roy fires a perfectly timed counter right hand, lightning from the past, cracking clean across Calzaghe's chin. The undefeated champion crashes to the canvas. The crowd explodes. Calzaghe shakes his head in frustration rather than pain. He wasn't badly hurt, but he was reminded. Roy Jones Jr. still had power. He still had timing. He still had magic. Blood trickles from Joe's nose. A reminder that this is not just a boxing match, but a test of pride. Calzaghe rises, smile across his face. He taps his gloves together. Roy stalks him like the predator he once was. Joe begins to step forward. Jones tries again, but Calzaghe refuses to panic. Instead, he starts increasing his pace. Jones throws fewer punches, but each one feels dangerous. Still, Calzaghe begins to find his rhythm. His hands start working, like gears slowly releasing pressure. But the knockdown, it changed everything. Roy Jones Jr. still knew how to hurt greatness. The crowd sensed a shift. In round two, Jones waited, calculated, searched for another perfect punch. But Calzaghe had downloaded the data. He began to move faster, breaking into his signature rhythm. Not elegant, not perfect, not textbook, but effective. Slapping hooks, rapid jabs, uppercuts thrown from odd angles. He didn't punch with single shots. He punched with storms. He began circling Roy, hands down, showboating like the old legend once did. And now it was Roy watching a mirror image of his past. A man too fast to time, too relentless to stop, too confident to fear. But Roy, ever dangerous, landed several sharp right hands that snapped Joe's head back. The crowd felt the intensity deepen. Two masters of rhythm, feint, and timing, writing symphonies with their fists. By round three, Calzaghe completely flipped the momentum. The knockdown was forgotten. He begins to taunt, dancing, smiling, waving his arms. Jones tries to time him, but Calzaghe's pace is unsettling. It's unnatural. He no longer fears the power. Instead, he surges forward, throwing combinations in bursts. Jones slips some, blocks some, but more and more begin landing. The Welshman is pouring an ocean onto Roy's flame. And yet, Roy still waits for that one last spark. By the fourth and fifth rounds, the fight has transformed. Jones, once the matador, now slowly turns into the bull. His legs are less mobile, his reflexes just a fraction slower. He leans against the ropes, attempting to lure Calzaghe into mistakes. But Joe isn't reckless. He attacks in waves, not in desperation. He throws 5, 7, 10 punches at a time, not because each one matters, but because all of them do. He wants to smother Roy's timing, to shut down Roy's magic with pressure and persistence. Jones still fires back, crisp counter right hands that land flush, even snapping Calzaghe's head back. But Joe doesn't break. He doesn't even blink. His eyes burn with Welsh fury. He has tasted the legend's power, and now he doesn't fear it. He begins pushing Roy into corners, making the great Jones fight a kind of fight he never liked, a grinding, pressure-filled brawl. The crowd sees it now. Jones still has skill, still has pride, but Calzaghe has something far more dangerous, relentless belief. By round 6, the real war begins. Roy Jones is bleeding, badly, a cut above his left eye, a deep slice caused by a Calzaghe combination. Blood runs down his cheek, dripping, staining his vision, but Jones does not retreat. Instead, he begins to fight with heart, something critics long said he never had to rely on during his prime. He fires back, landing perhaps one of the best uppercuts of the fight, a beautiful, snapping shot right through Calzaghe's guard. The crowd gasps, but Calzaghe shakes his head, smiles again, dances away. The Welshman has now become the showman, mimicking Jones' signature moves. The behind-the-back feint, the dancing footwork, the shoulder roll smirk. The irony is surreal. The man facing Roy Jones Jr. was fighting like Roy Jones Jr. once did. Desperate, yet still proud, Jones tries to time Joe again. But Calzaghe's rhythm is too unorthodox, too unpredictable. He begins picking Roy apart with volume. Jones still lands the harder single shots, but there simply aren't enough of them. The judges don't just score precision, they score persistence. Round 7 arrives, and something changes. The blood from Jones's cut has worsened. His corner struggles to stop it. His left eye is now partially blind. Yet Roy, refusing to wilt, launches his last real assault. 2 massive right hands, a counter uppercut, another left hook. The crowd rises in disbelief. Hurt or not, Calzaghe simply refuses to back away. He continues punching, volume over venom, heart over fear. Jones watches as Calzaghe, with blistering speed, begins landing combinations, 5, 8, 12 punch flurries. Not all clean, but all meaningful. He doesn't try to knock Jones out. He tries to drown him in activity. Roy persists, proud, scarred, still dangerous. But his timing is fading. His legs no longer respond like they once did. For perhaps the first time in his career, Roy Jones Jr. is forced to fight not with brilliance, but with courage. The crowd stands, salutes. 2 fighters, one rising, one refusing to bow. Round 8 to 10. This was Calzaghe's painting. He threw over 100 punches per round, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Roy tried to survive, tried to find single-shot magic, but the magic was fading. The reflexes, no longer godlike. The speed, no longer alien. The showmanship, now overshadowed. Jones, the once untouchable king, stood in that ring, bloody, battered, yet still proud. He never quit. He never begged. He never ran. He fought with everything he had left. But Calzaghe was too fresh, too fast, too relentless. He danced, he showboated, he attacked, and he began to build what looked like an unstoppable lead. Yet the respect never faded. Joe never disrespected Roy. He honored him with pace. He honored him with effort. He honored him by giving him everything he had. Jones landed a few final counters, reminding the crowd, reminding Joe, that legends don't fade easily. But this was no longer Jones' era. It was Calzaghe's. In the championship rounds, Roy Jones Jr. refuses to disappear. His eye is nearly swollen shut, his legs heavy, but his pride untouched, his spirit eternal. Calzaghe, knowing victory is his, could have coasted, but he doesn't. He keeps attacking, he keeps throwing, he keeps proving why he is undefeated. Jones fires occasional counters, not enough to win, but enough to matter. Enough to remind the crowd that though time has taken speed, it could not take greatness. The crowd begins chanting, not for Joe, not for Roy, but for both, for greatness, for legacy, for heart. Calzaghe begins dancing one last time, throwing flurries with joy, emotion, passion. Jones digs deep, lands one last home run right hand. It lands flush. Joe smiles, nods. They both know. This isn't about who is better. It's about eras, about time, about legacy. A final bell rings. The crowd stands in ovation, not just for the winner, but for the warrior spirit shown by both men. For the young champion who preserved his legacy, and for the old legend who protected his dignity. As the judges prepare their cards, there is no suspense. Everyone knows who won. The question now is not who was better tonight, but what this night meant. Michael Buffer walks to the center. The lights dim. The crowd quiets. And with the power of boxing history echoing in his words, he declares, winner, by unanimous decision, still undefeated, Joe Calzaghe. Joe raises his hands, but the loudest applause goes, not to the winner, but to both men. Two greatnesses, one night. Two stories, one remembered for perfection, one for resilience. And in that moment, Roy Jones Jr., bruised, bloodied, and beaten, walks over to Joe Calzaghe, embraces him, and whispers something only legends can understand. Tonight, you earned more than victory. You earned history.